Hello, everyone. You're on the ShadowNotes channel. There are mysteries like old, abandoned houses. They scare us with their history. But there are others. Mysteries that resemble a gaping void on the map. A place where there should be nothing. And where, one day, a large passenger plane disappeared without a trace. March 8th, 2014, Kuala Lumpur International Airport. A Boeing 777, one of the most reliable aircraft in the world, prepares for a routine night flight to Beijing. On board are 227 passengers and 12 crew members. People are sleeping in their seats, some watching movies, others thinking about reuniting with loved ones in a few hours. Everything is perfectly normal. Too normal. At 1:19 a.m., Flight MH370 leaves Malaysian airspace. The controller hands it over to Vietnamese counterparts. One of the pilots, Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah, makes contact. His voice is calm, even mundane. He utters the last words the world would ever hear from that aircraft. Good night, Malaysian 370. And 2 minutes later, it vanished. It didn't explode. It didn't send a distress signal. It just went dark. On radar screens, the plane, a bright dot, simply faded away, as if someone erased it from the map. At that moment, the story ceased being a story about a flight and became a story about silence. Dozens of countries launched the most extensive search operation in history. They looked for wreckage, oil slicks, black box signals, but the South China Sea was empty, as if the plane had never been there. The first thing that struck me in this case was this absolute, unnatural emptiness. And then, when everyone was already desperate, the British satellite communications company, Inmarsat, made a shocking announcement. Their satellite continued to receive automated signals from the plane, electronic handshakes, for 7 hours after it disappeared from radar. You won't believe what this means. The plane didn't crash. It turned around, made a strange loop over the Malay Peninsula, and flew for many more hours. It flew, but no one on board responded. It was a ghost flight. Satellite data allowed 2 possible arcs to be outlined where the flight might have ended. One led north into Asia, the other south into the vast and uninhabited expanse of the Indian Ocean. The search moved there. Imagine this, searching for a needle in an ocean-sized haystack. Months turned into years. Ocean floor robots scanned, but they found only silence. The culmination of this silence was an event that, it seemed, should have provided an answer, but only raised new questions. In 2015, a year and a half after the disappearance, a piece of wing, a flaperon, was found on the coast of Reunion Island, thousands of miles from the initial search area. Expert analysis confirmed it belonged to Flight MH370. It was the first and almost only physical evidence of the disaster. But how did it get there? And where is everything else? The ocean yielded one tiny detail and fell silent again. This deafening silence forced people worldwide to develop theories. Let's, like documentary filmmakers, break down the main ones, because the truth, most likely, hides somewhere between these versions. Version 1. Technical malfunction and hypoxia. The theory suggests that an accident occurred on board, for example, a fire or depressurization. The crew and passengers lost consciousness due to lack of oxygen, and the autopilot continued to guide the plane along its programmed course until it ran out of fuel. Facts in favor. This explains why the plane flew so long and why no one communicated. Facts against. Why then did the plane make such a complex and precise turn? Why didn't experienced pilots have time to send a distress signal? Modern aircraft are designed so that in case of depressurization, the crew has time to don masks. Version 2, deliberate pilot action. This is the most popular and darkest version, actively promoted by many media outlets. It states that the captain, Zahari Ahmad Shah, deliberately diverted the plane. Facts in favor. Only a highly skilled pilot, intimately familiar with the Boeing 777, could manually disable communication systems and accurately guide the plane in the shadow of radars. A route very similar to the one MH370 flew into oblivion was found on a simulator at his home. Facts against. These are all circumstantial clues. Official investigation found no evidence that the pilot had mental health issues, debts, or motives for such an act. His family and colleagues described him as a well-balanced professional. Forum suggests this version is simply an attempt to find a culprit when no other answers exist. Version 3, terrorist hijacking or third-party intervention. Perhaps hijackers infiltrated the aircraft. Facts in favor. This would explain the deliberate disabling of communications and the change of course. Facts against. No terrorist organization ever claimed responsibility. There are no demands, no manifesto. Why would hijackers fly to the remotest part of the planet and simply vanish? This does not fit the pattern of terrorists. Some find this theory even stranger when they learn that there were several passengers on board with fake passports, but the investigation showed they were ordinary refugees, unrelated to terrorism. Version 4, cargo. Here's what I found in open sources, and it makes you wonder. In the aircraft's cargo hold, among other things, was a large shipment of lithium-ion batteries. The theory suggests they could have ignited, causing a fire that slowly destroyed the plane's systems, giving it time to continue flying, but depriving the crew of any ability to act. This explains the lack of an explosion and the long flight. But it still doesn't explain the perfect turn and the complete silence on the airwaves. And so, we are left here, with one piece of a wing and 7 years of silence. The official investigation is complete. The final report, hundreds of pages long, states, the team is unable to determine the real cause of MH370's disappearance. They spent hundreds of millions of dollars, only to conclude that they know nothing. You know what's most terrifying about this story? Not that the plane crashed, but that it vanished. In our world, where every step is tracked by satellites, where everyone has GPS in their pocket, a massive machine with 239 people on board could simply dissolve. This shatters our sense of security. It reminds us that on our planet, there are still places where you can disappear forever. Personally, this story never leaves me. I look at the map of the Indian Ocean, and it's no longer just a blue color. It's a vast white void, a symbol of the unknown. Perhaps the most terrifying thing in the world is not tragedy, but a mystery that will never have an answer. It's a graveyard without a single tombstone. Which version seems most plausible to you? A technical malfunction, human error, or something we still can't comprehend? Write your thoughts in the comments. And if you want to continue unraveling the deepest mysteries with me, subscribe to ShadowNotes.